Shabbat Shalom. In our Torah portion, we learn about skin diseases that cause impurity. And these diseases require a separation between the diseased people and the healthy ones. A person who is declared by the priest as having a defiling skin disease moves out of the camp, and everything that he touches is considered to be unclean. Most of the skin diseases that we learn about in this week's parasha, including leprosy, have been all but wiped out by modern medicine. And the discussion of them is a discussion of the past. Our challenge today is to find relevant meaning amongst the irrelevant diseases that appear in our parasha. Leprosy is a skin disease which is mentioned in the Bible as being a serious and contagious disease that has no cure. In Jewish thinking and understanding, the cause of the disease is a punishment for one's negative behavior, especially for slander, when we hurt people and embarrass them in public, or by gossip, by speaking badly about them behind their back. It is very easy to enjoy talking badly or hearing bad talk about others. It's hard not to believe slander when we hear it, no matter how many times we've discovered it to be false, without any shred of truth. The negative has power. We always remember the negative or the bad things about people. When we say or hear negative stories about other people, we feel a degree of satisfaction. It's like the sensation of feeling full after devouring another person. From innocent, happy children who see the good and the beautiful and the fun and everything, we've become skeptical adults who are experts in finding faults, differences, and problems in people and in the world. And you know what? We even enjoy it. It seems as if today no one is ashamed anymore of sins which the mouth commits. I don't think that anyone would have a problem confessing to this sin. But on the other hand, if I were to ask if anyone sinned by way of impure thoughts, fraud, or adultery, no one would openly confess, because these things are still shameful. But improper speech and slander, we all know that these are a sin, but no one is really ashamed of it. The leprosy that comes from negative speech is a physical sign of a negative mental state. And that's exactly Yeshua's intent when he speaks the following. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that is what defiles them. At his disciples' request, Yeshua explains this saying. But the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and those defile them. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. The big question is, how do we get out of this situation? The leper, the one who spoke evil and hurt others, goes out to isolation, outside the camp, away from the group. Outside, there's no one to talk about. And there begins the mental process of purification, which leads to the purging of the disease. Then the leper immerses in water, shaves off all body hair, and starts life over again. This is a reference to being born again. In our understanding, one who is born again is one who declares that he believes in God and considers Yeshua to be his personal Savior. And from that moment on, he dedicates his life to God. That person is immersed in water and comes out as a new person. This signifies the death of the old man and his sin, and his resurrection is a new beginning. Even as a nation, God gave us second chances and new beginnings. God cleanses us over and over, and he gives us countless possibilities for a second chance. For one main reason that repeats itself dozens of times in the Torah, that we would be his people and he would be our God. And as a result, we are commanded to guard and to do God's commandment. Therefore say, This is what the sovereign Lord says. I will gather you from the nations and bring you back from the countries where you have been scattered. And I will give you back the land of Israel again. They will return to it and remove all its vile images and detestable idols. I will give them an undivided heart and put a new spirit in them. I will remove from them their heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. Then they will follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. They will be my people, and I will be their God. There were times in which Jews were considered by the peoples of the world to be lepers. We were rejected, pushed out of the camp, but God promised that this would change. The peoples of the world will see in us, the people of Israel, a blessing, and they will want to be near us. We see this trend growing stronger today. The reason for this is Yeshua. Yeshua was crucified as King of the Jews. Believers from all over the world want to take part in his kingdom. They want to share in this blessing. So they draw near to the King of the Jews and to his people. When I look for relevant theme from this parasha, I understand it as being all about rejection, be it rightfully or wrongfully. Even today, we see people different from us and we want to keep distant. We want to push them out of the camp, out of the group, just as the leper is cast out. These differences could be over the color of skin, race, nationality, not to mention religion or faith. But what we are most afraid of is a person who shares our religion, our faith, race, nationality, but holds to a different theology. We feel compelled to keep our distance. We see the person with different theology as being dangerous, someone who can infect us with a modern leprosy of thinking outside of our theological box. Could it be that a word of salvation, of redemption, of success could come from the mouth of a leper? This happened in the Haftarah of this week's Torah portion. Can it still happen today? Will we be able to receive the message, the truth? And most importantly, which concerns us here at Netivyah, will the people of Israel, will they be willing to hear the gospel of salvation from the mouth of a Messianic Jew? Our Haftarah this week is from 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 3 till 20. In the chapter preceding the Haftarah, we are told of a great famine in Samaria, which is caused by the Aramean siege. The Aramean army encircled the city of Samaria and completely cut it off from all supplies in order to conquer the city. The famine in Samaria was terrible. People were starting to eat their children. There were total despair. The king wanted to kill the prophet Elisha, but Elisha turned to the king and promised salvation. But it was difficult. It was difficult for the leadership to have hope during such a desperate and difficult time. Our Haftarah begins with chapter 7, verse 3. There we are focused on 4 lepers who are in despair even more than the inhabitants of the city. They're already starving to death. And they decided to take the final risk of going to the camp of Aram to ask for mercy. Even if they get killed, it wouldn't matter. They said they were already dying of starvation. But maybe the soldiers of Aram will throw some crumbs their way. I think that the 4 lepers made a lot of noise as they approached, because otherwise the guards might have thought they were spies or a commando assassination team. They wanted to draw the attention of the Aramean soldiers, to ask for a few crumbs of bread out of pity. When the lepers arrived to the camp, they found it abandoned. And the scriptures tell us that God made them hear the sound of a mighty army. And the Arameans thought that the Egyptians' army was coming to fight them. So the result was that the army of Aram fled and left everything behind, the food, the silver, the gold, all their property. Our lepers begin to plunder the camp. But very soon, they start to feel guilty, despite the fact that they were kicked out of the city during the siege. It was their national duty to share the good news and not to sin by remaining silent. That same night, they went back to report to the king. But the king feared it was a trap. The king got up in the night, and he said to his officers, I will tell you what the Arameans have done to us. They know we are starving, so they have left the camp to hide in the countryside, thinking they will surely come out, and when we will take them alive and get into the city. After the king confirmed that this was not a trap, the people went out of the city and were saved, just as Elisha promised. We, Messianic Jews, could be compared to those lepers. The rest of the inhabitants of the city don't want to come in contact with our theology. Essentially, dialogue within Judaism has kicked us out of the camp. But it is we who have the opportunity to bring the good news of Yeshua, who is sitting, waiting just around the corner. We know that he is there, waiting for his people. But I suppose that most of the people of Israel suspect some sort of Christian trap designed to get them to convert. Our challenge is to be faithful to the gospel which began as a Jewish movement. Will this gospel that we preach cause Jews to remain faithful to the Torah, to the traditions of their ancestors, to their Jewish identity, to remain set apart from the rest of the world? The gospel we preach should lead to the fact that we can truly and honestly say yes to all these questions. Shabbat Shalom.